Do you want to relive the golden days of Stockton? Join Nate Knott on Stockton Alive every first and third Monday at 6 p.m. Tune into thevoiceofstockton.org.
The Voice of Stockton.
With Matt George and Leo Beas.
Cowbell Kingdom's podcast.
I got a fever. And the only prescription is more cowbell.
Thursday nights at 7 p.m. right here on KXVS, the voice of Stockton.
The word of the night, Leo, fun.
With Matt George.
Says that we are live. So we are live.
And Leo Beas.
Cowbell Kingdom's podcast.
Here's Matt and Leo.
Well, it is a nice evening here in Stockton, the greater Sacramento area. It's getting hot, heating up here as we approach the summer months. But as the summer approaches, the end of the NBA season, the beginning of the offseason, and the beginning of what we believe here in Sacramento to be the season of change for our Sacramento Kings. Hello, everybody. Matt George here from Sports 1140 KHTK with my partner Leo Beas. This is the Cowbell Kingdom podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on. Glad to have you with us. Also, Dustin, our man, our producer, running the board, pushing all the buttons, and then E-Man back in the corner doing E-Man things. The whole crew is here, and we're excited to bring you CK podcast number 293, and there's plenty to talk about today. Before we dive into that, introducing my partner in crime, Mr. Leo Beas, rocking the Sacramento Cowbell Kingdom shirt. Leo, how are you, sir?
I am excited. My Mexican soccer team is in the finals today. It's been 11 years since 2006 they haven't won the championship, which coincidentally is the year the Kings made the playoffs, which was the last time they made the playoffs. So let's hope that Chivas breaks the curse and the Kings break the curse next year, man.
Summertime soccer, always good stuff. We have the MLS around here, which is always growing. I prefer
Republic MLS or what?
That's what we're hoping for. It looks like, according to a couple reports that come out a couple days ago that I read, I guess Sacramento is the top favorite for one of two MLS bids coming in the next year or so. That's just the bid. That doesn't mean they would be MLS by next season. But certainly great stuff for Sacramento, and we're not surprised from the standpoint of we know how good this fan base here is in Sacramento and how much they're willing to surround a team and support a team, not just the Sacramento Kings, which we've seen in history, but also, I mean, the Sacramento River Cats have pulled record numbers year after year after year. Back when they were the A's affiliate, when they were winning a lot of games, now as the San Francisco Giants affiliate. The Sacramento River Cats always sell out a lot of games, especially during the summer months and during the weekends and the night games. Sacramento has always been willing to embrace new things and to support teams that not just win, but show up and play hard. And it doesn't surprise me at all that this Sacramento community is going to be the home of a future MLS team. And I think the MLS recognizes, one of the things that makes soccer so great is the fan base. And one of the things about European soccer that people love so much is the crowd interaction, the chants, how much involvement there is between a sport and a group of people or a large mass of people that can pour their energy, pour their effort, and pour their passion into guys on the pitch who then turn around and make a game that some say isn't very exciting because of a lack of scoring and turn it into a party, a lifestyle, a celebration. Get it. Yeah, they don't. And I used to be one of those people. And no, this is not this is not a soccer podcast, so we're not going to take too long on that. But no, I used to be one of those people. I did not watch soccer. I thought soccer was boring because of the lack of scoring, because I grew up as a basketball guy. I grew up as the typical, I want to see scoring every 2 minutes. Baseball, I could kind of handle. Football, decently too, but basketball was my sport. Quick scoring, quick action. To watch soccer, you don't appreciate soccer until you watch what happens off the ball. And until you actually go to an event. My first ever Sacramento Republic game that I went to, I was fortunate enough to be there in the playoffs when the Republic came back and beat the LA Galaxy 2, and it was Rodrigo Lopez's game-winning free kick from like 26, 27 yards out. But what I remember most about that game, and then I did go to the championship game after that too, but just the environment, the celebration, the fan involvement, because there's not scoring every 5 minutes or every 30 seconds, you can't just wait for the ball to go in the net to cheer, and you don't just sit on your hands. You get involved. You help fire the team up, and that's what makes soccer and football across the world, English football, being so, that's what makes it so impactful and so enjoyable, and there's so much passion involved in that sport, and I love it, and that's why Sacramento makes so much sense for that. And we actually have seen that passion in EuroLeague basketball as well. There's just something about that European fan base, and really
They had fire inside the arena.
Sacramento,
That was ridiculous.
yeah,
So
well, we don't
ridiculous.
encourage that
No.
necessarily.
No.
But Sacramento can be like that, and I think players and NBA executives and sports executives in general recognize that and can see that. There's a reason why back in the day it used to be so loud in the building, because fans would be always involved, always loud. And I mean, cowbells, noisemakers, that screams soccer European crowd that we had here in Sacramento. That's one of the reasons why I became so attached to it. And one of the reasons why I believe the NBA knows that, I mean, David Stern knows why NBA belongs here in Sacramento and how the NBA can benefit from having crowds like that. Because quite frankly, you just don't see that. I mean, Oklahoma City is the closest thing I've seen.
Portland
As well. I have
and
not
then give credit to the Warrior fans. They're
no, of
pretty damn
course,
loud.
of course.
They're pretty
But I'm
loud.
not just talking volume. I'm
Yeah,
talking
you're right.
involvement.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Warriors, the Portland Trail Blazers, the Oklahoma City Thunder. But you don't see this stuff like at a Knicks game or in Cleveland.
No,
and that's
never.
not that's not a gripe against them. It's just different types of fan bases and different types of cultures and environments. But enough about soccer. I love soccer. I could talk about it all night, but this is a Sacramento Kings-centric podcast. And that being said, we're going to talk NBA playoffs, which the Kings are not involved. We'll touch on that a little bit. We're going to have an awesome guest, Oliver Maroney. He writes, he writes for Dime Magazine in Portland. He's a basketball writer. He's written a bunch of really good pieces. One of the most recent pieces that he wrote that I'm going to ask him about is he wrote a piece on some of the most underrated and underappreciated players in the NBA. And I think there are so
He's
many
really
of
good.
those guys, and a lot of them have been on Kings rosters, and not just current. I mean, we're talking in the past. So we'll definitely talk to him about that. He's got some great stuff. We'll talk to him specifically. Being in Portland, he has those connections with the Trailblazers as well. So we'll definitely touch on that angle a little bit and then get his thoughts on the playoffs and everything like that. But specifically, the conversation involving the Kings, we'll talk about some of the trades and trade rumors around the NBA draft, not just with the Kings, but with potentially other teams as well, and really who holds a lot of the power and what moves we can expect to see being done. And then I've yet to hear or see a realistic breakdown of what Bogdan Bogdanovich can bring to the table, and looking at him and not, I mean, it's easy to buy into the hype if you go online and watch one of his tapes. Of course, the highlight tapes are only going to show his good moves and what he does. Yeah. So I'm looking to hopefully be able to invite the listeners, invite everybody into a conversation about realistically, who is Bogdanovich? What kind of player is he going to be right away? What can he bring to the table right away in Sacramento? And what can we expect from him as an NBA player? And really, we'll also touch on the differences, or really lack thereof, between EuroLeague basketball and NBA basketball, because people would be surprised how competitive the EuroLeague is. So we'll touch on that a little bit. We're going to wait. We're kind of killing time here between Oliver, or waiting for Oliver to call. He should be momentarily calling in. But as of right now, we have the NBA Finals going on. The Eastern Conference Finals. It looks pretty inevitable that the Cavs are going to move on. They're up 90-65 currently, with 6 minutes 43 seconds to go in the third. I'm curious.
Let's not talk about that. I want to ask you about what Dave Yeager said a couple weeks ago about him building a dynasty in Sacramento. Does that enlighten you? Does that make you like, oh my gosh, this dude's legit, like he really cares? Or
Well, what it says to me is that Yeager's in for the long haul, right?
Correct.
But I think we knew that. And you know, I always go through these debates in my head, and Dustin, feel free to jump in, our producer that always helps us out. Dynasties to me have a negative connotation right now because we have the Cleveland Cavaliers, we have the Warriors, and then there's kind of nobody that can really go toe-to-toe with them. So I can understand why the Kings would like to get to that immortal status. Of course you want to get there. Us looking at the Warriors or the Cavaliers from the Sacramento perspective, we're like, oh, this is stupid. It hurts the game. But if it were the Kings, we'd be like, hell yeah, let's go. So it's all a matter of perspective, but to hear him say that is encouraging to me because it says he's in it for the long haul and he has his mind on a goal and he has priorities that he's going to shoot for.
I think the NBA is the only word you can use dynasty anymore in any sport because I think every other sport is there's more parity in the NHL.
The Giants? No?
Giants. No, I wouldn't. What do you call that a dynasty, Matt?
The San Francisco Giants?
Yeah.
It's every other couple years.
Would you call that a dynasty?
If it was long, I don't think it's long enough.
Yeah,
close.
And all different players. Yeah. So I just think the NBA is the only sport where you can call it a dynasty right now because they're basically
the Patriots are pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no parity in the NBA really. It's all the other sports. So that's the only where I use the dynasty word. I think you could use.
Well, and that transfers well into the question that I was going to ask. We've talked enough about this Cleveland Cavaliers-Boston Celtics series because it's basically over. We know that the trilogy is going to happen. We're going to get Warriors and Cavaliers.
Yes, we are.
I have slowly started to come around. Okay, I want to see it if it is as dramatic of the conclusion as we're hoping to be, hoping to save these playoffs that have just been horrible. Absolutely horrible.
First round was good. Second round was awful.
Well, first round had some good games, but it wasn't good. Like, this playoffs just haven't been good, and the playoffs won't be good.
Last year were awful, too.
Well, playoffs won't be good. Exactly.
Yeah.
Playoffs will not be good again until these dynasties do not exist, in my opinion, or they change the format, which is, because of TV money, never going to happen. That's another conversation for another time. But I'm starting to come around with, okay, I'll buy into this trilogy thing if it's going to be... Like, look at it from a UFC title fight or a WWE title fight kind of perspective. You have one team that won the first time. The second team came back, won the second time. Now it's the final clash to end all clashes kind of thing. I'm in. You got me. Fine. But is it good for the game? That's the question I wanted to open up.
Go ahead.
I don't think so. I just my personal opinion. I don't think it's great for two teams to run a league. I think I call for parity because I'm a fan of seeing other people win. This isn't the 90s when the Bulls or the Pistons or different teams were competitive, but there was always that top team. This is like there's two teams and everybody else. And I just think it's not making the NBA fun anymore. It's getting boring.
I agree with you, and a lot of people do agree with you. I completely agree with you. We went into this season, I mean, anything can happen based off of injuries at any given time, so you can't ever say anything is set in stone. But did anybody expect anything less at the start of this season? No. Like, what was the point of the regular season if not to... I mean, thank you, James Harden and Russell Westbrook, for giving us a battle between players and an MVP conversation to talk about. But other than that, it was always Warriors and Cavs all the way through.
Yeah, it's like a bracket. You just fill it out, and last two teams...
Who's the next victim?
Yeah.
Like, you almost wanted to be a seed in the playoffs that happened to get knocked out in the semifinals or just the divisional rounds, so you didn't have to touch the Cavaliers, but you could still get there and maybe play a competitive series against, like, the Wizards. In my mind, the Wizards probably got the best end of the stick in terms of an Eastern Conference Conference playoffs appearance because they ended up in a competitive series. They lost to Boston, but they never.
The Wizards would have given the Cavs a little bit more. Of a challenge because they matched up better.
I can't say that.
They did.
I don't think the way the Cavaliers are playing, I don't think anybody could have matched up with them. I mean, Boston...
I'm not saying they would have won. I said they would have played better.
But I don't think so because I think Boston has better defensive matchups with the Cavaliers than the
Isaiah
Wizards
can't guard
do.
a soul, man.
Okay, but we're not talking about Isaiah Thomas. I'm talking about like Jay Crowder. I'm talking about Avery Bradley. Bradley Beal is not that good of a defender. Otto Porter is
a very good defender.
He's capable of doing it, but LeBron would expose him. Let's be honest. And then they have nobody to handle. They have no one to handle Kevin Love. I mean, Gortat maybe, but Gortat's not fast enough to hang with Kevin Love. And then John Wall is quick enough to hang with Kyrie Irving, but doesn't have, in my opinion, would not have the oomph to get that job done because it's really difficult to stay in front of Kyrie Irving.
It's just, yeah, you're right. I don't know what to say about this NBA season. It's a toss up in the air. It's like, can somebody else step up next year?
Well, and I really want to be a fly on the wall for these meetings that are going to happen during the summer because Adam Silver has not been, the NBA commissioner, has not been shy of saying we are going to meet and talk about this because we recognize this trilogy is good and people are going to be watching. The NBA Finals are going to break every record so far as they do every single year in terms of viewership. It's going to happen no matter how bad these playoffs were. However, is that a good metric to say how healthy and how good the game is going. Just because for 6, 5, 7 games you have a large audience from around the world watching, does that mean that the game is as healthy as it could or should be? And I think there's going to be a lot of meetings this summer addressing that and potential solutions, ways to get around that. At least the ball will get rolling. And I'm anxious to see what comes out of that and what Adam Silver and the owners decide to potentially do.
Well, you're going to watch it. You're going to watch it. I'm going to watch the finals.
Mm-hmm.
The entire world's going to watch the finals because they want to see LeBron against Curry against Durant. So it's actually, I think it's a good thing.
Okay, yeah, but it's good for that finals. But is that healthy for the? Is that a good indication of the game as a whole, of the NBA as a whole? People are going to watch those 7 games. Great, they could watch those 7 games and not take any context from the regular season or postseason, and still be just fine. That's the point. Like, why, as a casual fan,
you have the
why
casual
should
fan.
I watch the regular season
As
and
a
the playoffs
casual
up to this
fan,
point?
correct.
But I mean, that's how you have to look at it, is the majority of people are casual fans. They're not people that are going to be on NBA on TNT or NBA Network every single night watching whatever game comes on. Those people are rare with the way our world works and the attention spans of our world now.
And you see on the TV guide James versus Curry. So that's going to be casual fans glue right there, basically.
Exactly. So the question Adam Silver and the owners need to ask is, okay, we're going to get good ratings. The TV money's going to be there. That we already know. Is that a good, proper indication of how healthy our game is or how healthy we want our game to be? In my opinion, it's been worse than ever.
It's not good for the brand, I don't think.
It's good for 2 teams.
Yeah.
It's good for the matchup. It's good for the dramatic story. But the game itself, I don't think so. Leo, your thoughts just on the season as a whole?
As a basketball fan, I thought the season was pretty interesting. I thought it was exciting, but you're right. The playoffs were just on another level as far as not good. It was
when the
super
Warriors
boring.
go 12-0.
Yeah, exactly. But I thought the regular season was good. I don't know
What about it
you.
made it good?
Everything. I mean, we had drama every night. We had Russell Westbrook, James Harden.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is James Harden and Russell Westbrook, that angle really gave us something else to talk about other than Cleveland and Golden State.
Even
But
the
other
Warriors,
than that,
though, anytime they played, every team wanted to like beat them, and every team gave them their best. And to
but
me,
they
that
only
was
lost 15 games. So,
yeah, but the games were competitive.
Okay, but competitive.
I mean, they weren't all blowouts like it has been during the playoffs. I mean, it's been super boring to watch.
I understand. So let's focus on some Kings here. Again, we're still waiting on Mr. Oliver Maroney to call in. He's a basketball writer for Dime Magazine. He should be any minute, we hope. We'll be talking.
Edward said on the text line, he said, thoughts on the Kings. Should the Kings take bad contracts to get assets, first-round picks, while developing the young guys in the next few years?
Yeah, contracts are a conversation that we'll have, and I think that also will transfer into the conversation that I want to kickstart here, which involves trading. You and I talked about this right before we went on air, and we were totally in agreement with one another. Even if Fox was guaranteed to, so that's my guy. That's who I want the Kings to go out and get is Fox. Even if he is guaranteed to be taken 3 or 4, I would rather the Kings hold on to both picks, because right now I know that there are so many holes that this team has, and their rebuild process is going to take time.
Correct.
So plugging the hole with one guy, even if you think he is going to be that good, in my mind, is a too big of a risk to take in a draft this deep. In my opinion, the Kings should not trade their picks unless they're somehow acquiring more picks and they are going after guys that are going to be maybe mid to late first round. So if they fell in love with a player that was expected to go 15 or 16 and they had the number 10 pick and the people slotted at the number 10 position weren't all that good or weren't all that enticing to the Kings, they trade that pick to move down in the draft, up in the draft to take maybe the 14th or the 15th pick, and then get another pick on top of that.
Correct.
While another team takes the 10. That's the only trade scenario that I like. But for the Kings to potentially package 5 and 10 to move to 3 or 4 or move any, unless you could somehow slip something into the drinks of Danny Ainge and the Boston Celtics to move up to number 1.
Correct.
There's no move that they could make that, in my opinion, makes it worth it.
Yeah, that better be something good in Vegas. That's going to happen.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And the only way I would see the Kings going down to 3, or if I was a GM, would be if I would package up that 10 overall pick and Costa Koufis to Portland for number 15 and 20, then I would trade 20 and 5 for number 3. But I wouldn't trade 5 and 10 for number 3. There's just no way, because you're gonna get one of the top 5 players regardless. So yeah, I wouldn't do it, and I'm hoping that Josh Jackson doesn't fall to the Kings, but I think it's gonna happen, man.
So he's with the stuff that's coming around. Reports are coming out more and more about
dude has anger
Jackson's draft stock lowering because of his history. I mean, we all knew about the incident that he had in college with that girl. It's
it was
unfortunate.
an assault. He was accused for battery assault,
right?
I think.
But it never. Hey, I know that ring. Thank God, saving us from that awful conversation that we were about to dive into. Mr. Oliver Maroney joining us, basketball writer for Dime Magazine in Portland. Oliver, how are you, my friend?
Hey, not too bad. Not too bad. How are you guys?
We're doing well. Matt, George, and Leo Beas with you. You're on the Cowbell Kingdom podcast, and we appreciate you taking the time. There's plenty of stuff that we can talk about, plenty of stuff going on and enticing, a very close and interesting NBA game going on right now. I'm not sure if you've seen the score. It's neck and neck at the moment, 103-71 with 2 minutes and 3 seconds in the third. So my question is, who's going to win the finals, Boston or the Warriors?
Well, I think it's going to be Cleveland and the Warriors. But that being said,
my bad.
No. The Warriors. I think it's, to me, it's just talent-wise. I just think the Warriors are a better team. They play better basketball. And honestly, I think they match up better against Cleveland than they had in previous years because of the Kevin Durant addition.
Yeah, no, I mean, Boston as a whole has been very disappointing in my mind in being able to. I thought they would be able to put up a little bit more of a fight, especially at full strength with Isaiah Thomas. We saw them win Game 3, put up a decent fight in the first half of Game 4, but again, when we see Cleveland flip that switch, LeBron turns into LeBron, Kyrie is Mr. Clutch for that team. Ultimately, Boston was just overmatched, and we saw this coming, but that has to, I mean, that speaks to the NBA playoffs as a whole. Oliver, your thoughts on these playoffs as a whole? Have you been watching them consistently, or have you had to force yourself to really sit down and break down these games?
Yeah, it's been hard, just because of, obviously, most of them being blowouts. I mean, it's just been very frustrating to watch as a viewer, and I can understand why. You know, you've got a ton of different scenarios that just you didn't foresee. Kawhi Leonard goes out, Houston just lays an egg, and Nene goes out. You look at the Western Conference specifically, I think has been more of a walkthrough than the Eastern Conference has been. And I just think overall, the one thing that is a good takeaway, I think, for this league, and a good takeaway for most of the players and for viewers and fans is the fact that you've got these two perennial powerhouses that are going to match up in the finals once again. And as a couple of players have already stated, this puts a chip on their shoulder to try and beat these teams. So could we see more super teams? Could we see more teams kind of form together to beat these guys? I think that's what this league is going to be headed towards, is really just who can beat the Cleveland Cavaliers in a playoff series, who can beat the Golden State Warriors in the playoff series.
Oliver, you've watched the Oregon Ducks very closely throughout the years. I want to talk to you, or I want to ask you about Dillon Brooks. Tell me about his personality, about his overall game, and do you think he would be a good fit for the Kings in that second round, around 34, 35?
Yeah, look, I know Dillon pretty well. I've spent a lot of time with him over the past couple of years here and really gotten to know him, or at least I feel like I do, and as much as you can as far as with a player of that caliber and what he's doing and how busy he is. But really, I've gotten to spend a lot of time off the court with him. We did like a couple of little video shoots and whatnot, and he's just, honestly, I think he's a little bit misunderstood to most of the national media. I think a lot of people think, he's got a little bit of Draymond Green to him, where, the flopping incident that happened against Utah a long time ago, and a couple of other things crop up, and people just look at him a little bit more negatively than they should. Look, this guy is as hard of a competitor as I know. Whatever it is, doesn't matter if it's on the court, off the court, whatever. He wants to win at just about everything, and he works his butt off. I mean, he's always in the gym. Anytime we talk, text, whatever, it's he's coming from a workout, going to a workout, whatever the case may be. But he is. I think he's a very good fit with the Kings. I think he's a very good fit overall in just about any organization at this point because of the way he's just versatile. He gives you a lot of different looks. You can play him with a lot of different players. Now, defensively, is he, Draymond Green? No, he's not. But offensively, I think he can be as good. I think he's got a lot of upside on the defensive side of the ball if he can understand and kind of move laterally a little bit quicker. And I think that's what he's working on. That's what he's focused on. So I really like him as a player. I think that, he's got that chip on his shoulder. He wants to prove everybody he can wrong. And you just can't have enough of those guys in the NBA and in your locker room.
Oliver, looking at some of the work that you've done, and you've written some incredible pieces, some awesome stuff for Dime Magazine. I encourage everybody that's listening, if you get the chance to just go onto Oliver's Twitter and check out some of the stuff he's posted there. The first article that I saw that really caught my eye that I dove into because I think it's an interesting topic, and there are so many of these guys. You wrote about the most underappreciated players in the league, some of the most underappreciated and undervalued players. Can you give us a list off the top of your head of some of the biggest names that were in that story, and what about them makes them so underappreciated?
Yeah, I mean, I've got guys like JJ Redick in there. I put Kevin Love in that category as well. D'Angelo Russell was the first name, and that's actually how the story got started. Is I saw a lot of people saying would you trade D'Angelo Russell for a lottery pick? And I'm sitting there to myself are you kidding me? You would really do that? And so that got me to thinking. That got me to kind of turn the wheels and figuring out what other players there are out there. Paul Millsap obviously comes to mind for pretty much everybody. Mike Conley is kind of the same situation. I didn't put him on the list because so many people listed him as underappreciated. I kind of felt like that narrative ran a little bit too far at this point. So, but as far as the players that I do have on there, I think first of all, I put Patrick Beverley as one of the top guys on there. And the reason I did is because, look, there's no one else in the league that's going to be as pesky as he is on defense. And he just doesn't get the credit because he doesn't score a ton of points. I think a lot of these players that I put on there, you'll notice a trend. They don't necessarily score 20, 25 points a night,
right?
Rebound 10 or 15 rebounds a game, or assist more than 10 plus or whatever. They just don't jump off in the box score. What they do is they're the difference makers on their reputable teams, I guess you could say. JJ Redick, obviously we know who he is, but everybody talks about the big three in LA. It's where's JJ Redick in that conversation? He's not in it a lot of the time. And I feel like he's probably the cog in the wheel that makes everything work for that team, because without his off-ball shooting, there's no way they get anywhere close to where they have been in the past few years. So things like that just kind of stuck out to me. And you talk about players that aren't talked about on very good teams was kind of a trend, aside from obviously D'Angelo Russell and a couple others.
So you mentioned scoring, and there's no hiding the fact that the NBA is a scoring league, and the first column that people look at in stats is point totals and really judge a player based off of that because of the type of league that this is. But other than scoring specifically, what definition do you give to the term underrated or undervalued? Is it just scoring specifically, or are there other aspects to it?
There's other aspects. I think with a guy like D'Angelo Russell, it's a perfect scenario. I mean, basically, he's averaging 16 points, about 4.5, 5 assists, something along those lines, and a couple of rebounds per game. But people look at his efficiency and they say, well, he shot 40%, and from 3-point land, I think he was 37 or 36%. He's not the most efficient player, and I'll give him that. I'll give everybody that. But at the same time, if you look at some of the plus-minus numbers, if you look at some of the key indicators with certain players on the floor with him, and then you also just take into account the tape. I think a lot of people nowadays, writers, guys that want to be writers, they all just look at the stats and say, all right, I'm just going to throw it on a piece of paper and this makes sense, so I'm going to put it out. Well, if you watch a lot of the game tape, D'Angelo Russell has this similar factor to what Steph Curry had at Davidson, which was players around him that weren't necessarily the best offensive players and couldn't garnish the assists like potential other teams could. I think they called them Lovedales because there's a guy on Steph Curry's Davidson team called Andrew Lovedale. And so there was a nickname kind of formulated for that. And similar to that, D'Angelo really didn't have many offensive players that were shooting efficiently or could get their own shot. So I just look at a lot of different things. There's not really one particular category that I look at, but as far as like putting it into an underrated or undervalued, underappreciated, really it's just being talked about. I just think there's so much negativity around D'Angelo Russell, and for good reason because of the off-the-court issues, but I think that kind of spreads on the court, and that's where there's just, look, you've got to separate the two a little bit.
Yesterday, a report came out about D'Angelo Russell vocally talking about how he doesn't want the Lakers to go out and draft Lonzo Ball. The two play the same position. He did say that. I'm interested, from your point of view, does that fit right into the underappreciated conversation? And then, in your mind, would it be a dumb move for the Lakers to potentially trade or get rid of D'Angelo Russell to open that spot up for Ball?
Yeah, I think, that definitely plays into the underappreciated part. I think, he looks at all the fans that are crying for his name to be traded after 2 seasons, one with one of the worst coaches in the league. How can you judge a player like that? To me, it's like he's midway through college right now, and instead he's in the NBA. So you've got to really put things into perspective for people, and I don't think people fully understand or grasp that. As far as Lonzo Ball, I think he's going to be a terrific player. I love what he brings to the table, his vision, his playmaking. It's uncanny. It's definitely different. It stands out. It's very unique and original. But at the same time, if D'Angelo is coming out and saying that, you've got to take care of that one way or another. Whether that's sitting down with Magic and Rob and the other guys and figuring out where you're going to end up. If that means trading you, if that means finding a destination for you, that's one option. The other option is to sit down and say, look, are you just saying that to cover your butt? Because, you really don't know. You really don't. I think D'Angelo Russell is very misunderstood, and, as I said, for good reason. Off the court, he's had many incidents and different things, and everybody knows kind of his history and past, but I do think he is misunderstood emotionally and mentally, and I think for that reason, we may want to there's a little bit of pause for concern as far as those comments are concerned.
If you're Vlade Divac, do you trade number 10 for D-Russ?
No doubt about it. Okay, this is what frustrated me so much when people were talking about lottery picks and trading for a pretty known commodity in D'Angelo Russell. Like, that D'Angelo is going to get you 16 to 18 points a night, 5 to 6 assists, and turn the ball over about 2 to 3 times. That's known. Like, that right off the top of your head. And everybody knows coming into the league, like a Brandon Ingram, like other rookies that struggle, Anthony Bennett, etc., lottery picks are still hit and miss. Whether or not this is the best draft in the world or the worst draft, you're still taking a massive risk on whether a player will really turn out the way that you want him to. You've got a guy who's got 2 years of NBA experience. You can throw him into the point guard position. He has more maturity than he had coming into the league. I think you would much rather kick the tires on a guy like D'Angelo Russell than some unknown commodity that you're drafting at number 10.
I agree with you. Now, you cover the Blazers very closely, Oliver. They have, I think, 15, 20, and 25, correct?
Yeah, I think it's like 15. Yeah, I think 26 maybe? I don't know. Something close to that. You've got it pretty much on the head. Yep.
If you're the Blazers GM, do you explore the options of calling the Kings and potentially trading up for that number 10 pick and packaging up 15 and 20 and possibly getting like a Costa Koufos in return?
Yeah, I mean, you could. If you're the Blazers, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be really hard to figure out what you're going to do with those picks because they don't have enough slots on their roster to even give those picks to. So it's going to be really interesting to see kind of where they end up. I think if you're the Sacramento Kings, you do that deal 9 times out of 10 just because you're getting 2 more potential picks and, 2 more potential great players because I think this draft is deep and I do think there is potential there. But as I said previously, it's a crapshoot. I mean, it's just they say it's the lottery for a reason because you only win and hit on certain ones.
Oliver, sticking with the Portland Trail Blazers, what mode is that team in right now? They made it to the playoffs. They just barely snuck in. They were battling for that 8th seed with the Kings for a little bit. Mostly their main opponent for that 8th seed ended up being Denver. So they are technically still a playoff team, but we know with the juggernaut of the Golden State Warriors, teams like Portland may not really have much of a hope. So are they in a rebuilding mode right now, do you think? Or are they thinking we are 1 or 2 pieces away from being legitimate contenders?
I think they're 1 or 2 pieces away. I don't think they're necessarily a team that can be, clawing their way back or going back into a rebuild mode. I think they're already too far in to be there. They're 1 or 2 pieces away. I really don't think they're far off. They had a couple of really unfortunate injuries this year, and they've had a couple of unfortunate events as far as just play-wise. I mean, really, Aminu struggled this year. Nurkic comes in, really elevated the level of play, and I think that's kind of the future cornerstone of their franchise along with CJ and Dame. So all they need is a couple of young kind of draft picks to bring this team to full depth and really get a solid 10 rotational players that can play. And I think they'll be in good hands. I mean, look, Dame said it already. He wants to compete with Golden State, and
right.
I think everybody wants to beat them. That's kind of the goal at this point. I think there's an opportunity there. Do I think they're going to be able to do it in the next couple of seasons? Probably not. But I'm of the essence that if you're like the Clippers or the Raptors or one of these teams where all the fans say blow it up year after year, I don't understand that kind of mindset, because you're a top 4 seed in your respective conference and you do well every single season. That's all you can really ask for. Give yourself an outside shot at winning a championship. Give yourself a chance of winning a championship. And that's like I said, really all you can ask for, because the risk is way higher than the reward.
Oliver Maroney, basketball writer for Dime Magazine in Portland. Thank you so much for your time. Last thing for you before we let you go. From your perspective, being in Portland, being outside of Sacramento, when you look at the Kings at 5, is there a player that jumps out that you would go for or you would like for the Kings to pick up, just from the outsider's perspective?
That's tough. I mean, I like a lot of these players in the draft. I think when you look at the higher picks in the draft, I think you need to take somebody that you feel can make an impact right away. I don't think you can sit on a player, and I don't necessarily think it needs to be offensively. You've got Buddy Hield who can hit from outside. You've got a couple other pieces that I think would be good, and Dave Yeager has shown that he can coach. It's just a matter of finding the right pieces around the guys that you already have. And I think really De'Aaron Fox would be a guy that I would look at. I really like his upside if you can get him there, if he falls or whatever you want to call it. I think he would bring a different set of energy and mentality to this Kings team. I love his work ethic. I saw him at Hoop Summit here in Portland, as well as a couple times with Kentucky. And he's a hard-nosed defender, and he's going to get after it every night. And you can't, like I said, you can't have enough of those guys that are just really willing to work, willing to, die for the extra ball. And that's what the NBA is turning into. And guys like that are going to be easy to coach for Dave Yeager and save him a lot of time coaching and really developing these guys.
Oliver, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you coming on the Cowbell Kingdom podcast. Anytime that we can have you back on, we definitely would like to. Guys, check his work out. Basketball writer for Dime Magazine in Portland. Just look him up online. He's got so much great work out there. Again, I encourage you to check out his article on the most underappreciated players in the league and why, but he's got a lot of good work out there. Definitely a guy to go to, not just for a Portland Trail Blazers perspective, but from a league-wide perspective as well. Oliver, again, thank you so much for your time.
Hey, thanks very much for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll definitely do it again.
Take care, buddy.
Oliver,
thanks.
adding some great perspective there, and we appreciate him jumping on. And we're about 20 minutes here, and we really want to spend some time talking about Bogdan Bogdanovich. So I'm going to make this conversation pretty quick. But we're looking at trade or no trade possibilities. He talked about Fox. We talked about right before he came on. We would not be interested in potentially packaging the 5 and the 10 to make a trade up. Now, the D'Angelo Russell angle
Yeah, I
is
was gonna say
interesting.
that.
So
Yes.
that would be how you would take that under consideration, because that
I
would
would
solve
take it in a heartbeat.
That would number 10 straight up. That's
up.
easy.
In a
I mean,
heartbeat.
that's an easy decision.
10 and someone
if we
else
had
if you
more
want.
time, I would have asked Oliver. I would have asked him, is that a move that realistically the Lakers are looking at, or is that a move that the media is kind of pushing so people think it's? I mean, in my
What
mind,
more can they get? They're not going to get a top 5 pick for him.
Oh no, of course
Yeah,
not.
that's what I'm
But
saying.
Is Magic Johnson willing to pull the plug that quickly on a player like D'Angelo Russell with the upside that he has? So that's a potential trade that's out there.
I think he's up to anything, Magic Johnson. It's his team now.
Right.
Jeannie Buss is like, here you go, do better than my brother could do.
Mm-hmm.
And you have Rob Pelinka there, who knows
job.
who knows every agent in the NBA and every executive, basically. He's going to do something. So I think Magic wants to make this team basically his.
I'll say this: if I'm the Lakers, I keep D-Russ and I move him to the 2 guard, because he's always been a 2 guard, and he that's where he's best at it, in my opinion. And I think towards the last 15 games of the year, they played him at the 2. Why? Because they knew that they would probably get Lonzo Ball, so they kind of prepped him already. But it's interesting that he came out and said, "I don't want to draft Lonzo," which to me is mind-boggling, because they're actually friends. So it's
article came out on, I think it was LakersNation.com, which is a Sports Nation blog that covers the covers the Lakers. So that's not just a random blog saying this. This is someone who's actually on the ground, that's close. Also, Fox News or Fox Sports picked it up as well. They talked about it just a little bit. So it's definitely out there, and I can understand why. The Lakers came out. Magic Johnson came out and said the only untouchable player that they have is Ingram, which was actually surprising to me. But, the Lakers are willing to make these moves. They are not happy with a rebuild. As much of a young core as they're potentially building with a Russell, a Ball, an Ingram, and a Julius Randle, they're not happy with that. They are guys that make splashes like a Paul George. That is the moves they want to make. So I anticipate the Lakers making a move that is kind of a head-scratcher for the future in order to get back and be prominent right now, because that's who the Lakers are. I just am interested to see how much stock Magic Johnson is willing to put in guys like Lonzo Ball, and how much he's willing to give up in order to open up the door for these players that he wants. Because sometimes in that perspective, being desperate to get back to that level of Laker basketball that they're known for, you make desperate moves like giving away a D'Angelo Russell for someone that isn't worth his talent. It's quitting on a player
because
that
we
good
know
too
that
early.
he can score 15 minimum every single night,
Sure.
right?
We kind of saw this in LA with the Dodgers a couple years ago when they got basically new ownership, new / front office, and Magic Johnson was kind of part of that. So it's going to be interesting to see if Magic basically does what they did with the Dodgers. Yeah, make the same approach and spend all the money the Buss family has on getting the team better.
So we talked about this last week. We talked about how Vlade's phone is going to be ringing off the hook for the fact that he has 2 top 10 picks. There's plenty to look at and to talk about from that angle, and we can extend this conversation into next podcast. But let me give you some of the names that have just been rumored out, floated out there as potential trade bait on draft night. Enes Kanter, Carmelo Anthony, Ricky Rubio, Eric Bledsoe.
Yes.
I'm not talking specifically for the Kings. I'm talking just in general.
I'm just saying no to
these
the Kings,
are,
though.
These are just names that are going out there.
Okay.
I think
Kanter, Melo, Rubio, Bledsoe.
I think Rubio's gone out of Minnesota.
And, well...
I don't think so.
And now...
The Derrick Rose rumors there too.
Oh my God, that'd be a huge mistake if they traded Rose for
I'm not talking specifically Kings. I'm just talking names that are out there. So Paul George is another name that's been floated out there. We knew that. Now Isaiah Thomas's name is out there because these last 2 games without him being in, if he plays in all these games, even if they get swept, I don't see Isaiah Thomas being as much of a potential trade bait as he is right now. These last 2 games, even though I disagree with all the hot takery of the Celtics are better without Isaiah Thomas, I think that's absurd. However, defensively, they have been able to match up better with Cleveland without him on the floor. They are a better team when Isaiah Thomas is in the lineup. However, defensively, with the last 2 games, not this game, forget this game today because it's a joke, but the last 2 games, Game 3 and Game 4 in Cleveland, Boston competed defensively without Isaiah in the lineup. Whether you like it or not, that changes things a little bit. That now makes him a little bit more available than he potentially was. So the question was asked, not just with the Kings, but with other lottery teams, would someone make a splash to potentially try and take Isaiah Thomas away from Boston, so that opens up the spot for them to go get Markelle Fultz, because there's a good chance that could happen. But again, Isaiah Thomas is entering a contract year.
So would you give up 5 and 10 for IT?
And the only way that I would make a move for IT the Sacramento Kings would be a guarantee that he would resign, and even then I wouldn't give up number 5.
Okay, I was like, whoa.
Even then I wouldn't give up number 5.
Yeah,
I would
way.
package 10, but Boston probably isn't going to make that move. I don't think the Kings are in a situation to potentially make any kind of offer for IT. D'Angelo Russell, you could talk. IT, other players like that, Melo. I mean, even if the Kings were interested in Melo, they can't make
I even forgot about
pitches
Melo.
to these teams with the pieces that they have. So
Phil would love to get rid of Melo for number 10. Like in a heartbeat, he would do it.
Phil would love to do a bunch of stuff, but he's proven as an NBA executive that he's not competent.
Well, he's held hostage. Carmelo won't say yes to any team that he actually wants to trade him
But
to.
how many times has Phil Jackson shot himself in the foot with doing absolutely absurd things, like allowing Carmelo to take or giving him that no trade clause in the first place?
That was the first mistake that he gave him.
Yeah, but then
he was forced to
making
give
the
him that,
situation worse by, okay, Melo, we're kind of stuck with you, so rather than trying to work with you and make this as easy and workable as possible, I'm going to undermine you by talking to the media every chance I get and make just everything awkward and uncomfortable. He knows the only way he's going to trade Melo is by Melo being so fed up that he wants out. Melo loves living in New York, so he knows that, oh crap, I need to be this much of an a-hole in order to push Melo out, and that's what he's trying to do. And I think it's just a bad look. I don't think Phil Jackson as the coach before he became the executive had this bigger, larger than life persona.
Like aura, like
now he's crashed and burned.
It's kind of with the Doc Rivers thing also in LA too. It's crashed and burned already, and it's going to be interesting to see where Melo ends up. And one of those
Chris Paul with the Spurs.
Carmelo Anthony with the Clippers, maybe.
Could be. You just don't know, guys. We're gonna devote these final 15 minutes to Bogdan Bogdanovich because I've been watching highlight tapes galore on this kid. He just won the EuroLeague championship with he led Fenerbahce, I think is how you pronounce it. Probably not. That's probably the American version, just absolutely butchering it. But Fenerbahce is what we're going to call it. He averaged 14.6 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, and 1 steal a game. He only played 28 minutes a game, which is interesting because as an NBA starter, I mean, he was the star of that team. 28 minutes a game is a star standard in the EuroLeague. In the NBA, a star standard is 35, 36, upwards of 40. So you have to take that into account a little bit. So he didn't average 22, 25 points a game like we see in the NBA out of star players, but 14.6 points per game, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, 1 steal in 28 minutes. He shot 50% from the field, 43% from three-point range. He's an 85% free throw shooter. The guy's 6'6", weighs 205 pounds. He's a ball-dominant guard. He's only 24 years old. Realistically, looking at this kid, the hype is there, the excitement is there. We get it as Kings fans. And yes, you look at his tapes online, all you're going to see is positive stuff. None of us have broken down and religiously watched Fenerbahce play all season long, so we haven't seen him in the low moments, which he's going to experience in Sacramento.
Yes, he will.
But realistically, looking at him, is he an immediate starter, and what kind of player will he be in the NBA? Off the top of your head, what would you say? What would you think, just knowing his game like we do?
No, I think Buddy starts over him.
So you see him as the 2 guard then?
Yes.
Okay. So he is a very ball-dominant guard. He is capable of playing the point. However,
I like him coming off the bench because he can play the point and he can, facilitate the offense from the bench. Kind of like how Ty Lawson did it, but a lot more offense-oriented where he can shoot the ball, he can get everybody involved.
So, but here's my argument for him. The only thing Buddy Hield has on Bogdanovich is the 1 year of experience in the NBA. Bogdanovich is in my mind, he's more of a complete player as of right now. He's further along in his development than Buddy. So what makes
I think Buddy's a better defender, and people don't give him enough credit. I was looking at the deep analytics, and Buddy's actually a good defender.
Buddy has quicker feet than Bogdanovich will. He's going to be quicker laterally.
Absolutely.
However, Bogdanovich also he's physical for his size, and at 6'6", he's quick enough to stay at least with shooting guards and potentially point guards, and he can body them up. So in my mind, there's going to be competition. Bogdanovich does not just come in
Which
here
is
and
great.
is immediately an off-the-bench kind of guy. He is capable to start. He wants to start. He wants to win. We're all assuming that he will come over. It's probably like a 90-95% chance that he will. He wants the contract. He wants the opportunity. He also wants to play for a competitive team. So we'll see how that works out. But in my mind, I would not be opposed to Bogdanovich being an immediate starter. However, a lot of it depends on what you do in the draft. If the Kings draft a point guard, then you start that point guard, or, well, also we'll see what they do in free agency. But if they drafted Fox, you start Fox, you start Buddy Hield, you bring Bogdanovich off the bench, I'm totally fine with that. Because you would want a floor spacer to play with Fox.
Would you start Bogdan and Buddy Hield?
If the Kings went out and didn't get the point guard that they really, really wanted, or got someone who's more of a project like a Dennis Smith Jr. or Frank, guys that were going to take a little more time that weren't immediately ready. Basically, if the Kings don't take a point guard with that number 5 pick, I would be absolutely all right with that. Just to give it a try, just to see how it works. Because, again, Bogdanovich
You mean if they don't take a small forward?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, if the Kings don't take
A
a
small
point
forward.
guard at number 5, I'm okay with Bogdanovich starting at point guard.
Oh,
I would
at
be
point
okay
guard,
with-
I said Fox, Buddy, and Bogdan at the 1, 2, and 3.
I'm sorry. I misunderstood what you said. I'm not talking about number 10 here. I'm just talking 5 specifically.
5 specifically.
With the 5, if the number 5 pick, if the Kings go out and get a small forward, if they decide, depending upon if Jackson slides or Tatum or whatever, if they don't take Fox or a point guard at number 5, because whoever you take at number 5 almost has to start, or at least you have to give them the chance.
Yeah.
If they don't take a point guard at 5, I think Bogdanovich deserves the chance to run the point, because although he played mostly shooting guard, and he is mostly a shooting guard, he is a ball-dominant guard with good handles. He can shoot. He also is a underrated passer, in my opinion. I think he has the capabilities to be a starter at 6'6" at the NBA level. I'd say why not give him the opportunity?
At the point?
Why not?
At that point, just sign his partner, Milos what's his last name?
Milos Testovic or
Milos. At that point, you sign Milos then to a pure point guard who has
about a 24-year-old versus a near 30-year-old or over 30 years old.
But we know he's a proven point guard, and he could have easily been playing in the league if he wanted to. But he hasn't wanted to come over.
How much I have a problem with? I think too much stock is being put into specific positions. Bogdanovich is capable of playing 1 through 3.
Can he guard a point guard? No.
Well,
so that's the issue that I take with that.
How do you know that? He hasn't.
Because he's not fast enough.
But he hasn't been given that opportunity yet, Leo. Why not?
Russell Westbrook, all these elite point guards in the West would roast him every single night.
Give him the opportunity to prove it. He's got the body to
be
able to be physical.
because they won't have enough talent there.
He's got the ability to be physical. My point is, don't be so willing to dismiss this guy and he immediately comes over, because quite frankly, he's going to be more NBA ready.
I
than
like
most
him
of the
offensively,
rookies
but
coming
defensively, he's going to struggle.
But you don't know that, because physically he has the capability of being a good defender. Just because, and this is going to sound bad, just because of his complexion and his being a European basketball player, that does not make him a bad defender perimeter against athletic guards. He can stay in front of people. He is capable of doing that. Everything about him as a player, his physicality, his youth, and his game suggests that he is capable of doing that. So why not give him that opportunity rather than immediately say, hey, you're coming off the bench, even though, honestly, he's more NBA ready than Buddy Hield at this point, in my opinion. I think he is.
Well, it's funny you say that, because that's the same argument I have for marketing. People say, well, he's a slow white guy, right? That he can't guard other guys. And I'm like, well, he's 19 years old, and I just showed a breakdown of just pure defense, and he's actually sneaky good. Like, he stays in front of the guys, he puts his hands up, so I can make some argument like that's his biggest deficiency, right?
Sure.
Markin doesn't play defense. Well, why not? Give him a chance.
So
to
the
guard
difference
other
to me
fours.
there is, and I get what you're saying. The difference to me there is, then you already have multiple guys at the position that Markkanen would fill, versus you need a point guard or you need a player like Bogdanovich right now. Quite frankly, also, I think Bogdanovich has a higher ceiling than Markkanen right now. That could change. We don't know what kind of player
he's 5 years
Markkanen's going to
older.
be. Exactly. But people can't look at Bogdanovich, by definition, is going to be a rookie. But he is going to be physically and mentally and skill-wise better than a lot of rookies in this league right away, because of the games that he has already played.
So what's his ceiling like? Because I guess the big argument is, whenever someone comes in as a senior or as a junior, they're too old. So technically speaking, Bogdanovich is coming in as a senior at 24 years old.
Too old is absurd. I think that argument is ridiculous.
I agree with you.
Being too old, please. Yeah. Players do not hit their prime until they're mid to late 20s.
I agree 100% with you.
Too old is a joke of an argument.
We saw Draymond Green come out, and everybody said he was too old.
Marc Gasol came out. Yeah. Manu came out.
Look how many players come out at 19, 20 years old and
are complete
struggle.
busts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why there are so many busts with young players in the NBA. This is actually a conversation we had on the drive this morning, KHDK's morning show. With NBA eligibility being only 1 year, with the fact that you're throwing millions of dollars at 19 and 20-year-olds, of course they're going to take that over staying. But they're not ready, not just physically, but mentally, not even close.
No.
Guys like Bogdanovich are... I can't say he's a guaranteed ready at this point.
He's the closest thing to it, though.
But he's as good as you're going to get.
Yeah.
And that leads us to the debate, the conversation about the European League. So immediately everyone says, oh, but Fox is coming from Kentucky, a glorified basketball school, whereas Bogdanovich is coming from the Euro League. Like this, for some reason, Euro League has a negative connotation around it, much like the D League does of it's only for NBA washouts and European players who, quite frankly, just don't have a shot. They can't compete with the NBA. And a lot of people look at Team USA and what they do in the Olympics every single year and say, well, international players are terrible. Maybe every once in a while you'll strike gold with a Dirk Nowitzki or Manu Ginobili, but mostly the NBA talent, the American talent is what's the best in the world. For the most part, you're right, but that doesn't make the EuroLeague any less exciting or less competitive. Bogdan Bogdanovich has faced really good competition for the last few years. So he's bringing that with him into the NBA. I don't think the leap between EuroLeague and NBA is as drastic as people think it is.
And some can make the argument that the EuroLeague is better than NCAA basketball because they're grown-ass men playing at a high level. So I just don't get that argument either, bro.
No,
I don't.
And it's similar to the D-League argument with the conversation that we had.
The D-League would destroy every college team out there. Would destroy those teams. Yep. They would. Because those are all the stars from all those college teams. Think about that.
So I'm curious what we have the comment section going crazy. We see you. We're trying to get to you.
Should we take like one call?
Yeah, if you want to call in, please do. We have about 4 or 5 minutes here towards the end. But our question of the week this week, I'm going to make it kind of a you have two. Let's put it this way. One is, what are your thoughts on Bogdanovich? What do you see him coming in? Would you like him coming off the bench? Are you excited about him, or are you kind of cautiously optimistic about him? That's totally fine. But the main question is, do you trust Vlade completely, or does he need to earn your trust with this year's draft and offseason? Looks like Chivas just scored. So again, let me repeat that question. Do you trust Vlade completely, or does he need to earn your trust? They just scored again. Can I ask the dang question, Leo? Put the phone down. Do you trust Vlade completely, or does he need to earn your trust with this year's draft and offseason? I'm anxious to hear. If you guys want to jump on and answer that right now, feel free. But for the comment section, for people listening after the fact, do you trust Vlade Divac, or does he need to earn it for you?
He needs to earn it. I think some of the moves were okay, but some of them, it's kind of been a head scratcher. The whole DeMarcus thing, what he said during that time. I still think the fans need one more year to trust him, and hopefully he doesn't mess up this draft. And I think after this draft, he'll get trusted.
Is there someone calling in?
Yeah.
Oh, caller.
Phone call. Oh, shoot. And you hung up on
and E-Man.
Call again. Call again.
E-Man's the jerk that hangs up.
We'll take it. We'll take it.
It wasn't us, but yes, please.
Oh,
there it is.
There it is. All right. Passing it on to you, Leo. Welcome in. You're on the Cowbell Kingdom podcast. What's your name?
My name is Roger.
Say it one more time for us.
Roger, R-O-G-E-R.
Roger, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing great.
Awesome.
You guys are the only people I can actually get Kings coverage from here in the middle of Kansas. So.
Middle of Kansas. Well, congratulations on being a Kings fan all the way from Kansas. Are you a Kansas Jayhawk guy?
Yeah.
Are you Sacramento born? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I was born in Sacramento.
Oh, right on. So you got the right genes. We know what's up. So what do you want to? What's up? What do you want to talk about?
So something on the chat we were talking about is like, I wouldn't mind having someone like a Milos come in, or even Bogdan, and then taking pressure off a guy like De'Aaron Fox. Or
correct.
Great point.
I'd love it.
I think we're asking a little too much of. Well, and it's classic Kings fans, right? We want this quick fix with the Fox kind of guy to come in and just save the day.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that's what McLemore was supposed to do, and That's what Robinson was supposed to do, and Stauskas. So we always want this quick fix. So I think taking that guy that has, I think Vlade knows both those guys really well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, but that's the great part. That's the awesome part, isn't it? And thank you so much for your call, man. The great part is the Kings have time on their side, and that's a difference from last season. Is they are able to take their time with a Fox or with a Jackson or a Tatum or a Monk, whoever they go out and get. They can take the time. They can bring guys in like Bogdanovich. They can get these veterans to come in and to ease the process along, because the expectation now post DeMarcus Cousins is a rebuild. Mm-hmm. Fans hate that word. I get it. We want to be pleasantly surprised by the play of a competitive young team that plays together, and we could get that, but the pressure is not on their shoulders right away like you would see from some number 1, number 2, or number 3 overall picks. Like Markelle Fultz is going to be expected, if he gets drafted by Boston,
right
not only is he going to be expected to be a good player, but help them make a playoff push.
So is Lonzo.
Lonzo Ball immediately as well. Guys like Fox or whoever the Kings take at number 5 have the time on their side. I think that's a massive asset.
I have a question for all three of you guys. Mm-hmm. Would you trade number 5, number 10, and Bogdan for number 1?
We kind of talked about this last week.
E-Man, Bogdan, 10, and 5 for number 1. You said yes, okay. Matt?
Yes.
No.
Wow.
My immediate answer.
Join the conversation, everybody.
Yeah, that's a good question to answer. My immediate answer in my brain was no, because going back to the same thing like moving up in the draft is the Kings have so many holes, one player isn't going to solve it. But to get the number 1 player in the draft and really to be giving up someone for the main, I mean, what you're going to be giving up is someone that hasn't played a second in the NBA yet, and I'm the first one to jump on that argument any chance that I can. That's why I have to be optimistic but cautious about Bogdan. Markelle Fultz, even though he hasn't played a second
superstar
yet, there's a reason why he's scouted to be number 1.
Yeah.
So if I'm the Kings, I'm interested in that. But again, if I'm Boston, I'm not.
Yeah.
Because them acquiring 2 draft picks, unless they're going to turn around, repackage those draft picks for other players, multiple draft picks for a team like Boston right now just isn't enticing to them, in my opinion.
Unless they get rid of Isaiah Thomas.
But then they would be shooting for a rebuild at that point. If they get rid of Isaiah Thomas but keep Markelle Fultz, they're still kind of in the playoff conversation, right? If they get rid of the number 1 pick and Isaiah Thomas for multiple picks, they're going rebuild. They're saying we can't catch Cleveland the next couple of years. So that would be the only reason Ainge would make that move. I don't think he's desperate enough yet to make that move. I hate to say desperate. I don't think he's going to be making that move. But if the Celtics offered that and Vlade had the power to say yes or no, you got to say yes.
Okay, would you trade 5 and 10 and Bogdan for number 2?
The Lakers would never do it. The Lakers want
they
Lonzo.
wouldn't?
I don't think the Lakers would.
No, I don't
There's
think
a
so
lot of speculation that they want De'Aaron Fox.
Good.
They trade back?
Lonzo Ball and his camp have flat out refused to work out with Cleveland or with Boston because they are 100,000% sure. And Magic Johnson.
And there's no guarantee, though.
But of course not. But Magic Johnson has.
Magic already said there's no guarantee that we draft this guy.
Okay, Magic.
Is it
every single thing he said about Lonzo Ball and everything that Lonzo Ball has said about Los Angeles and everything about Lonzo Ball of his market value.
I get it.
It's Lonzo Ball is going to be a Laker, and the Lakers want Lonzo Ball to be a Laker. Let's not pretend.
What if De'Aaron Fox busts his butt in these workouts?
They're still taking
then
Lonzo
what?
Ball because then it
that matters to me.
Well, yeah, it does matter. You put if they did that workout that they want to do, Lonzo Ball versus
De'Aaron Fox
in that
and
workout.
He busts his butt.
Even if he beats Ball in that workout, they're still taking Ball.
He's an LA guy.
That he is what LA wants.
So is what's his name? He's from SoCal.
Fox?
Yeah.
Well, but that's not. That doesn't mean LA.
Obviously, he's not an LA guy.
We're not talking like LA guy like he's born in LA. We're talking a guy that fits the mold of what an LA Laker is. Lonzo Ball is more of Kobe Bryant,
exactly.
And Fox is more of a less exciting but still talented player. Fox, the brashness of the big baller brand screams Los Angeles, screams that market. That's what the Lakers are going to do. It's obvious.
Speak it into existence.
So, unless the Kings are moving up to get number 1, they shouldn't move up, in my opinion.
Okay.
So
There it is.
Yeah.
That is going to be doing it here. 8:03, so we did a good job
Play
trying
some
to keep
music
on
on the
time.
bottom already.
We are going to slowly get out of here, but again, thank you guys so much.
Who? Go ahead.
All right, we'll take one more call really quick.
It's halftime. We're up 2-0. I'm ecstatic.
Yeah, this crazy loser soccer fan over here just going nuts.
And we have a rematch in the NBA Finals.
135-102, the final score. Cleveland just barely sneaks by Boston.
For all those Celtics fans that talked all that mess, and I'm talking to you, Joshua, please call the show.
But
what would be the reaction, though, if they traded Isaiah in Boston?
Tonight, they look like the number one team that's getting number one overall.
I'm just saying.
If they're getting Markelle Fultz, I think it's easier taken than you would think.
Okay.
Because if Isaiah Thomas was a long-term contract, then it would be more difficult for them. But I think
Shout-outs to Valley Tire Center. If you guys are looking for tire balancing, hit them up and download their free mobile app. The same goes with hoopcats.com. If you want any type of memorabilia, Kings, autographs, whatever you need, they have it. There it is, guys.
So we're waiting for this final call. We're gonna try and squeeze it in, but we gotta get out of here. So call in really quick right now if you have the second, because we gotta bounce here. Leo's got to get ready for second half of soccer action. I got to get back to Sacramento. It's a fun time, guys, to be a Kings fan. It's a fun time to look around at all.
And they have options, Matt. For the first time, they have so many options.
They do, and options are something that you honestly can't have too many of.
Yeah.
There are a lot of different options that they have. Good. Phone call is coming in. My man from Australia. What's your name, brother?
BJ.
I'm sorry, what was the name?
BJ.
Is it BJ?
Yeah.
Right on, man. Well, thank you so much for listening from Australia, my man. First off, how did you hear about us, and what makes you a Kings fan?
Instagram, I'm pretty sure, through the Sacramento site. And then the whole reason I started following Sacramento, I guess, was probably because of DeMarcus.
Uh-oh.
Sort of being that sort of that aggressive, sort of crazy-ass dude. But, no, ever since, I wasn't sure when he got traded what was going to happen, but no, I've stayed loyal. I'm keen to see what happens in the draft and stuff, and, yeah.
Good stuff, man. Well, we have...
going forward. Yeah.
I'm blanking on his name. Danny from England. From England. He made his way over. He's been a longtime Kings fan, a longtime listener of KHDK, the radio station that I work
from
out.
Chile, remember? Grant
yeah. So we've had a couple international guys make it out to Sacramento recently to be able to catch some games. You're the next one we have to get over here. Thank you so much for your support. Anything you want?
What's this question?
Yeah. What did you want to bring to the table?
No, I just like the whole Vladi thing. I guess I'm still. I don't know.
You're a little nervous about Vladi?
I don't know.
Good stuff, man. Well,
like hell nervous, really.
And that's totally all right. And dude, thank you so much for your call. You have to teach me how to do your accent because it's awesome. I've always wanted to do any kind of accent, but thank you so much for your call, BJ. Go Kings, man. It's awesome to have that international flair. All right, brother. Have a good night. Thank you so much for the call. Yeah, no problem, man. We heard he said thanks for everything for those who couldn't hear as we put him away. Awesome stuff to have the Kings go international. The game is going international, so
we have an international team, Matt. We have a soccer team.
That's a good point.
We do,
and that's what the Kings are going for international as much as they can.
NBA 3.0, Vivek Ranadive.
That's gonna do it for us here at the Cowbell Kingdom podcast. Thank you so much for jumping in, Matt, George, Leo Beas, Dustin, our man E-Man. It's a full crew here, and we had a great time. We had a blast. Thank you so much for joining us again. Question, do you trust Vlade Divac, or does he need to earn your trust? And also the conversation on Bogdan Bogdanovich. What do you see him being? Are you excited to see him over? Are you cautiously optimistic about him? We want to hear your thoughts on that. Also, we're always taking your wants, your desires for the NBA draft. So tell us about that as well. We would love to hear it. But for everybody, for our man BJ from Australia, for everybody Roger who called in as well, from Kansas. We have guys in Chile, Argentina. We have people everywhere.
Scotland.
Scotland. The following is incredible.
New York.
Love it so much. Yeah, good. Be a New York Kings fan. Don't be a Knicks fan. Or Brooklyn or New York. God, it must be a bad time to be a New York basketball fan. Just tell you what, right there. But have a great night, everybody. Thank you so much for everything. This has been the Cowbell Kingdom podcast, broadcasting live from KXVS 92.1 FM, the voice of Stockton. We will see you next week. Go Kings!